Akemura Soga. What an interesting man you are. What's up, guys? I'm Pencil here, and here I am to give you my thoughts on Akemura Soga, the main antagonist, of Kagurabachi, or at least seemingly for the moment. So let's not waste more time, and let's hop right into it. Akemura Soga is a very interesting character to me, mainly because he is simultaneously exactly what I expected, but at the same time nowhere near what I expected. If you wonder what I mean by that, I mean it in two ways. For exactly what I expected, Akemura Soga does feel like those ancient, primordial, monstrous big bads of your typical shonen. Think of your Maduras, think of your Aizens, think of, now with my little extra knowledge of One Piece, think of your Emus, these fundamental creatures that are so responsible for the state of the world as we know it before the narrative even starts, that you know they're going to either have some sort of impact in the modern narrative and or their impact is so widespread that they don't even have to. They just leave that level of legacy. And ever since we heard about the Sword Saint, and very specifically the massacre he committed, it always felt like Soga was going to be that, especially knowing that he was being kept by the Kabunabi. Everybody and their mother's father knew that ultimately Soga was going to get out. He was going to get his hands on the Shinichi or the Magatsumi, and he was going to start tweaking. That was kind of what I expected. Notably, you don't really set up a character like that and then leave them alive. Like, if they are going to do something in the narrative, and heck, you can even set up a character like that, leave them gone, as in removed from the narrative, and then just bring them back anyway. Look at Madara Uchiha, for example. But Akemura Soga defies all my expectations in ways, very specifically because of how he's being written. When you think of those big, bad, fundamental, almost force of nature tier antagonists, right, that have so much power, so many abilities, so devious, dangerous, and diabolical that they shape the very world around them through their actions, thoughts, and will, they sort of have a certain type or a certain way that they're written and characterized, right? Think of Madara. As much as we do love him for his crazy laughs, you know, the fun he has with Hashirama, he's still a very silly guy. Generally, Madara Uchiha is quite serious, quite stoic, quite almost beyond the people he's even interacting with. Same case for Sosuke Aizen. Though Aizen is admittedly a lot more teasing, it's still from a, I am greater than you. There's nothing you could ever do to understand me or perceive me. I'm just like that. Emo is weird. Emo's, I'm not going to go into it because I don't fully understand, but Emo's weird. But regardless, Akemura Soga has that power. He has that diversity. He has the ability. He is the strongest. There's no doubt about that, right? But he's also such a guy, and like, not in a bad way. Notably, there are some times where big, bad, major antagonists are built up for a very, very long time and end up being just a guy, and it's underwhelming, right? Like, it takes away from their mystique, and it makes you look at the writer and be like, what on earth were you cooking? But no, Akemura Soga is just a guy, and I think that's what makes him so much more unnerving. Notably, when you look at his design, he doesn't seem like he would really fit into that big bad archetype. He's rather lean, he ultimately has sort of a wispy build, and sure, he does have the black scalera, but like, he just seems relatively normal, right? But he still carries himself with this presence that befits his power, yet doesn't. And I talk about this very specifically in how he speaks. When I started to read Kagurabachi, I built up expectations for the Sword Saint, especially considering what major antagonists we had before. I looked at Sojo, I looked at Kiora, even Hirohiko, even though you can definitely argue, man, Hirohiko, not sure you're a major antagonist at this point, but Yura, essentially. All these different villains so far, and I had this idea for how the Sword Saint was going to be. Serious, stoic, but obviously determined. And we still do technically kind of have that, but just in the way he treats Samura, in the way he treats Yura, the way that he's this like living embodiment of ideals while still being just a dude. I think most specifically in how he talks to Chihiro, right? Obviously Chihiro is his nephew, so he gets special treatment, but in the way that he looks at Chihiro and is like, hey, you're so big now, bro. I can't believe it. I knew you when you were a baby. Like, I just don't ever expect that out of someone of that caliber. Think of the, well, I say think of, but like the most close comparison I can think of is very specifically Anakin and Luke Skywalker, right? When they met, it's not like Darth Vader was still suddenly a chill guy, you know? And of course it helped that Vader was much more a part of the plot before the reveal that he was actually Luke's father. But like still, in terms of the major antagonist having connection to the protagonist, there still was a specific dynamic there that was like main antagonist, main protagonist. Like there still was that. Meanwhile, with Akemura, it's like he looks at Chihiro, he understands Chihiro, but he doesn't because he just sees him as his nephew. Misguided, maybe a little bit naive, and ultimately someone who needs to be trampled over if he needs to, but ultimately he doesn't want to. There's this very heavy reluctance from Akemura to do much of anything to his nephew. And even if we move away from the direct connections he has with Chihiro and how much I like the dynamics and how he's characterized there, the one that really got me was how he talks to Samura once he notices that Samura healed his eyes. He's like, oh, neat. You look cool that way. And then he slices him in half anyway. Like, it's that weird dichotomy where I feel like I could sit down and like have a chat over a meal with Akemura, but at the same time, I can fully recognize why this man split the clouds when he drew his sword. Like, he's this weird mix of this super crazy, top tier, godly antagonist and a guy. And I'm not saying that's impossible to pull off, but the way it's being pulled off so far is amazing to me, mainly because there doesn't seem to be much contradiction between the two. The one thing that defines Akemura above all else is his inhumanity, in a way. The way that he had the mental fortitude to survive for 18 years alone. No contact with anybody, no food, no water, nothing, just sitting there. And then the instant he gets a minute piece of connection, he listens. He respects, he communicates, he understands. His dynamic with Yura specifically is really interesting because Yura, for all intents and purposes, was our main antagonist, right? Like, Yura, in the many ways that Akemura is responsible for the current plot, Yura is responsible for the current plot in many ways. Chihiro wouldn't even exist in the way that he does without Yura. Obviously, Hakuri wouldn't exist in the same position he was without Yura. Obviously, Soja wouldn't exist. Like, so many things are built on Yura. So seeing these two major antagonists communicate, and very specifically, the sanity of the Sword Saint and the absolute control he has over himself as an individual being the main reason that Yura's like, wait a second, I actually see a vision here. Let's keep it pushing. Let's see if I can actually work with this guy. It's that way that he came into the plot like I expected him to, but did it's weird. I don't know. It's weird to say that he did everything wrong, but he didn't do everything wrong. He did everything right in a different way. I expected there to be some sort of dynamic between Yura and Soga because they were not directly, but I'd say diametrically opposed, right? Obviously, Yura wanted the Shinochi. He wanted the Magatsumi for himself so he could wield it and now, become the hero that he believed the world needed. But no, Soga's going to be that. And he's going to be that just as Yura wants him to, while literally becoming Yura. Like, it's so strange because in many ways, everything's falling into place just as I thought it would. But also in many ways, Akemura raises so many questions about how he's going to be handled, right? Because not only does he have just interesting character dynamics as a guy with all the power in the world, but he also just stands in an interesting spot narratively, because I'm not sure where we are in Kagurabachi's timeline, right? Like, we just passed 100 chapters, I'm clicking my heels, I'm wiggling my toes at that, but we passed 100 chapters, but I don't feel like Chihiro's ready. Right? Like, this almost does feel like an early boss fight encounter. Like one of those fights that you're not supposed to win, but you're supposed to get experience for and understand maybe a little bit of the boss's moveset so you can fight them later. But at the same time, I'm not sure, like, Soga's gonna allow on later. I'm not sure how Soga's gonna interact with the Hishaku. I'm not sure how Soga's even going to be dealt with, because obviously right now our current cast kind of just can't handle him. I believe you could teleport every other top tier here, the rest of the Hishaku, everybody, and they mama, and ultimately they'd all be fried by Soga because he's just that powerful, right? There's a reason the man's basically divinity in humanity, but I don't know how we're going to continue. I don't know how we're going to progress, because right now, especially with Soga being so attention focused on weeding out evil, as he supposes his purpose is, and very specifically his animosity towards our deuteragonist and Hakuri, I don't know how this goes. And of course, there still is the question of how he's going to relate to the rest of the Hishaku, considering, he literally possessed Yura's body, right? And he essentially maybe swapped their consciousnesses or swapped their biology. Like, he switched places with Yura. Like, his biology overwrote Yura's. But then it's possible that Yura's biology overwrote his original body, which is still in the realm that Soga wasn't. Like, I don't know. I think if there's one sentence or phrase or 3 words I could say about Soga, it's that I don't know. And it's in the best way possible. I don't know how he's going to be handled in terms of, like, removing him from the narrative or even stopping him at all. I don't know how Chihiro's going to be able to deal with him, very specifically in terms of their ideological mindsets. As many people have pointed out, Soga is like a round start beginning of series Chihiro in terms of his ideology, right? Oh, bad people must go no matter what, and I don't care if you have any bad in you or the possibility of bad. If you have the possibility of bad, I gotta boom you. But at the same time, that is such a simple and straightforward mindset that carried Soga for literal years, like over a decade, nearly 2 of them. And I'm not sure Chihiro's going to be able to break that. And it puts Soga in this interesting position, especially considering he is Chihiro's uncle, where obviously Chihiro's role would be to defeat the main antagonist, right? Because, you know, he's the main protagonist. But how, though? How can Chihiro get so much stronger? How can he get so much faster? How is he going to be able to defeat Akemura? And I feel like the important thing about many of Chihiro's dynamics with his previous antagonists is that a lot of them came down to a mix of a physical battle and an ideological battle. When you think of Sojo versus Chihiro, it isn't just a battle between the wielder of Cloud Gouger and the wielder of Enten. It's the two who are going out of their way to try and define Rokuhiro's legacy, right? And ultimately Chihiro wins because he's able to not just overcome Sojo in a physical battle, but he also beats him ideologically wise. His interpretation of the legacy of Rokuhiro's blades is better than Sojo's, so he wins. If you think about the Rakuzachi by Kyoura Sazanami and the battle that Chihiro wins there, it's a matter of respect in how family is meant to be treated and viewed, and ultimately is Chihiro's more healthy view of family that is not constrained by ancient traditions of great evil that allow him to overcome Kyoura, right? There's that victory. There's Hirohiko and Chihiro, the ideology of two people who take lives, and why one person taking lives in a certain way is better than another, and why Chihiro overcomes Hirohiko time and time and time again, because Chihiro has a respect for legacy, has a respect for other people, has a respect for the lives he takes in a way that Hirohiko doesn't, so he overcomes the victory there. Even with Samura, when Samura was a major antagonist, there was still like a clear ideological difference, right? It was Samura being unwilling to look into the future, literally and metaphorically, and always wanting to do things himself, let the old generation take care of their own issues, and Chihiro being like, no, we can work together to overcome this, so he works together with Iori and with everyone else around him, and then he overcomes Samura, right? Like, there are clear pathways and clear ideological ways that Chihiro is like right, and thusly he wins over each antagonist he battles with. And like, obviously Soga's evil, right? I think I do need to clarify that, and as I run out of time, I do need to clarify that. Soga's evil. I'm sorry. Slaughtering all those people on the chance that they could become evil is wrong. Because then, if you live by that mindset, you need to slaughter literally everybody, because everybody has the opportunity to become evil, right? That's the whole reason why him going after Hakuri makes, like, no sense, because Hakuri's, like, a nice person, and that's why it doesn't really make sense for Soga to go after him, or like anyone with the potential of evil. Heck, he would have to like slaughter all the Hishaku too. They've caught countless bodies all for the sake of something that definitely certainly isn't good. So why on earth are we gonna suddenly let them slide? Like, it becomes a slippery slope, right? And I think if anything, that's where Chihiro's going to have to defeat his uncle on ideologically. The idea of all that power being in the hands of one person, and very specifically that one person believing that they can perfectly define good and evil, like, that's where the ideological battle comes in, but I don't know how Chihiro is going to get that through to his uncle without gaining massive, and I mean massive amounts of power, both physically, ideologically, and I suppose literally, in the sense of actually needing to combat Soga, because they're not in the same world. Sure, Samura is able to survive the one butterfly, but notably, as Samura already admits, Soga has way more abilities than just what was shown so far. The level of his abilities are much higher than what was shown so far. Soga's in an entirely different dimension than Samura, who still, I would say, is in an entirely different dimension than Chihiro. Chihiro still has so much more growth to do before he can even really tickle the toes of his uncle. And I think that is a good thing, right? As I've gone through this video, you maybe have heard me go back and forth and back and forth. Do I like this? Do I not like this? Is this a good thing for me to be so uncertain about the narrative purpose? Do I think the ideological battle is going to work out well? Or do I think it's going to be falling short in some way? All of this to say, I think we're in a perfect position. Depending on how long Kagurabachi is going to go for, I could easily see Kagurabachi hitting 200, 250, maybe even a little bit more, just considering where it feels like we are narratively. There's still so many open plot threads and so many loose things that are entirely disconnected from Soga, yet still obviously connected to Soga with the other Enchanted Blade Bearers, the rest of the nature of the Kabunabi, really just dealing with Katen, the current leader of the Kabunabi, who clearly has a certain few interpretations that need to be rooted out or dealt with in some way, shape, or form. There's so much to go. Hirohiko himself, really, the rest of the Ishaku. There's so much more to elaborate on. Heck, Hatshaku alone. And I think that's why Akemura Soga works so well. He's like a strange stick of dynamite that was thrown into the narrative seemingly a bit too early, and he's currently exploding. And he's covering everything, and I'm very, very excited to see how he's going to continue to cover everything and break everything down and sort of like restructure the narrative as we know it. Will that come with certain characters falling? Probably. Will I be happy when certain characters fall? No. But with that being the case, I feel like Akemura Soga is the perfect antagonist for Kagurabachi, as he acts as sort of a culmination of everything that Chihiro's been going through so far. And I'm very interested to see how Chihiro will rise to the occasion to really be able to combat this man, combat this monster, this being who contains divinity within a human shell, and ultimately has walked down a path of extreme darkness. And all of that is what I'm excited to see. But I am currently out of time. I know, stop. But there we go. If you haven't already seen this video, please leave Darkness Reborn. I don't know why. That sounds so edit. Leave Darkness Reborn in the comment section down below. I want to thank you so much for watching. So leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure that little case post so you not miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, you even have a picture down below where you support me for as low as $1 a month. You things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. So those perks include the live reactions to the series I'm to review, ad variations of all my videos, early ad-free access to all my videos, and by all my videos I mean all my videos on this channel, the main channel, early access and like live reaction stuff, which is exclusive to the patrons and members. And on top of that, all the videos for the second channel that got the reaction, link in the description down below. I drop 45 minutes to 2-hour long reaction videos over there every Saturday at 1 p.m. EST, so go check it out. It'll be a fun little time. And on top of that, you get your name listed at the end of every single video. But if you're a $3 member or higher, you don't just get your name $3 member or higher, you get your name listed and read aloud at the end of every single video. And with that, I want to thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with a Pencil, writing off. I'd like to thank you to our sketch tier members: Sort of Flame, Riddle, 4765, Astro, Glacier XZ, Zera, Brendan Payne, J2MA, Guillaume, Buddha Ura, Enzo, Swift Strike, Superflame Zero, Yuki Ally, Strike a Man, Grim, Ollie, The Boy, Corey Watson, Damon Brown, Magic, CCC, Armando Furen, Dino, Heath Nelson, Hector Gonzalez, Tim Thomas, Kaving, Julian Perez, Akolade Babatunde, Union I, RXN, Nevis97, Logan Guzman, Dead Meme, Koru Deer, Christian Carter, Keon Stewart, Donovan McIntosh, Sino King, Hamza Idrisi, BNA DNA, Edwin Ingbignoba, Cyan, Straw, Cybersage 12, Athenzi Sheer, Antavius Mitchell, Plant Crone, Azo2404, Kriya Panem, Zapro, Weary Exile, Karina Hernandez, Sheesh King, Window Life, Alex Kenny, Victor Jacobs, Todd, Dre, Axis XZ, The Practical One, Aswin Hedi Presetia, JMD Katie, Devi Pesiet, London Clapwick, CAET, and Funny Dude. Then I'd like to thank you to our line art tier patrons: A+A, Kevin Encarnacion, Sean, Dreadzoen, Midnight Lord 21, Alyssa Bujanos, CJ, and Brandon Cathell. Then I'd like to thank you to our Ink tier members: King RTX, Shrimpo the 4th Shrimp 06, and Zom. Then I'd like to thank you to our digital art tier members: J Warrior and AZ Void. And give a final thank you to our colored art tier patrons: Walking Munoz and Walking Munoz.